No, they're not Jehovah's Witnesses. I mean, your reactions are completely normal, but they're not them, okay? Continuing right from where we left off last week, Toko's party was following a lead given to them by Xiaoha. Apparently there was a forest in the middle of the desert where ancient elves lived and were clashing with their neighboring settlements. Though the latter point didn't stick out much to the Red Sentai as much as the ancient elves thing, and it seemed like they had a connection to the ancient Isekai hero who of course Toko was assuming was Kizuna Silver. Which to be fair, it did kinda sound like it checked out, as the elves seemed to have an unusual power like Toko's, though maybe not exactly the same, or at least not in the same franchise. Soupy Sphinx! Wait, that voice sounds familiar. Yep, that's the voice of Mark Okita, who provided the sounds for the Decade and DN drivers, and then later the Legend driver. So you can kind of guess where this is going, though it wasn't going to be anything anniversary related, as I think Gojuter already has this pretty well covered. Anyway, they made their way to the forest, which is actually a bunch of giant cacti. Well, either that or a bunch of dead Togemons. But yeah, it stood out to Togo as we did get in our fun flashback to his show, where we even got to see the actual names of the Kizuna 5 without needing to refer to the ending credits. Honestly, it feels like an episode like this should be in the single digits, but maybe it's one of those slower burn Toshiki Inoue shows or something. Would explain why the yellow of this team was a tad bit quirky. Granted, Togo probably should have kept his mouth shut when it came to trying to compliment her. Yeah, at this point, I'm hearing less Umiko and more of Sid, and yes, she did do the Japanese dub of her counterpart. Anyway, the water-filled plants around them made things cool and shady enough for our heroes to take off their cloaks, with the girls showing off their much more fanservice-y wares. However, less clothing meant less protection against the pricks of the cacti surrounding them, as Idra quickly learned. Fortunately, Toko had some actual bandages, which of course were one of the main product placements of his world. And even though band-aids didn't exist in this world yet, the idea of patching up a wound shouldn't have been a big deal, except for what finger it ended up going on. Well, just remember not to wash your hands too much, or else you'll lose that precious ring. However, out of freaking nowhere, she was kidnapped by that one Johnny Bravo cosplayer.
Cigarettes, firearms, anything.
No, but I got these guns.
Togo gave chase, and the other two would have done the same had it not been for an ambush by elves of the desert forest. And things only ended up escalating, of course mostly because of Loji's lack of diplomacy. Regardless, he managed to hold them off thanks to his Zhugliang fan, until the Amen they kept talking about arrived, and as it turned out, it wasn't referring to a Christian prayer, but rather they just kind of forgot the K at the beginning of that word. Man, Latte was never the same after Asumi moved to Florida. But yeah, Amen Rider Latte, aka Rania here, used coins to henshin into an Egyptian-themed hero. And in case you're wondering, no, there's no full Egyptian-themed hero in the Kamen Rider franchise. I mean, there's scattered elements like, of course, the Tutankhamun Damashi from Ghost, as well as Ankh from Oz, which in that show, they also used coins to henshin with, so maybe that's where this reference mostly comes from. Anyway, she henshined by placing coins in a purse rather than a belt buckle. Though, to be fair, it wouldn't be the first henshin device with Mark Okita's voice that wasn't a belt. And her design was pretty cool, looking like a combination of Jean and a certain hip-shaking meme. Meanwhile, Toko was still trying to save Idra, and I guess Johnny finally got around to working on his legs as he easily outpaced him. Thus the two decided to test out a rather clever invention that they just so happened to create after their little bath incident in the last episode. It was a teleport system that used Monomel to link up with Togo's Kizuna brace and allowed him to warp to her location and rescue her in a pretty cool sequence, which also led to some cute shipping, if anything. Back with Logi, they learned from Rania that not only did they have no mana seeds, their village outright detested them. The power of the Almond Rider came from someone that they referred to as the First, which hopefully more refers to this rather than this. Regardless, and in spite of Teletina trying to clear things up, Rania wasn't holding back, which led to a pretty good fight with Logi. I mean, for one thing, statistically, she was at least on par with 0-1, and of course, like any post-RX rider, she had a bunch of form changes. Yeah, Naritaki?
己の肉体一つで戦ってこそ仮面ライダーだ。1号見たまえ。
But yeah, in spite of not having quite enough Kamen Rider-isms, at least for my taste, Logi and Rania had a pretty creative and exciting bout with both warriors using vast varieties of forms and attacks. It of course eventually came down to a final exchange, with Rania breaking out a rider kick that involved a pyramid and kind of reminded me of a few of Wizard's kicks, which was appropriate for this fantasy setting, I guess. However, their attacks were stopped by Togo with his freaking Megazord. And after seeing him, Rania powered down. Yeah, sorry, I don't think they were talking about you, dude. But yeah, after calming down and dropping her mask,
Get it?
she actually started to sound a lot more like Latte. And it was a pretty effective means of building her character, as it does hint at how stressful being a rider was, to the point that she had to create a fake persona to fall back on. Anyway, she introduced herself as the 7th Amen, which just makes me wonder if that makes her stronger or Kabuto if we're going by Showa or Heisei eras.
彼が stronger なら俺は strongest.
And they showed off the prophecy that they kept talking about, and sure enough, it was the title card to every episode of the show. It foretold that a Red Warrior would save them from a grave danger, which of course they figured was referring to the Monoseeds, or more specifically in this case, the lord of the neighboring town Azur. He had taken over after his father was assassinated in a rebellion, and thus sought to forcibly take the resources of the elf village using magic that could control sand, which, yeah, is kind of OP in this sort of setting. He was so strong that even a rider with most of her form changes stood no chance. Can we just talk things out? No, I don't take any questions. I don't like questions. But yeah, because of him, understandably, racial issues ended up rising between humans and elves, which actually went against what the previous king's goals were, which does make you wonder who started that little rebellion in the first place. Fortunately, Togo, of course, was more than willing to help fight against the police state Axel. However, he also still wanted to learn more about the original prophet who seemingly predicted his arrival, and unfortunately, the only one who knew the answer to that was an elder who was in the middle of her really long nap.
Oh, how convenient!
However, worrying about that would have to take a backseat, as the episode ended with Azur arriving with his goons and ready to strike. This was a very effective introduction to a new character and arc for the series. Rania is a good combination of a cute yet badass female Amen Rider, and the setup for their new conflict is intriguing. Granted, I would have appreciated a few more KR references, but at least her power set was unique and something that I wouldn't mind seeing in Tokusatsu. I gotta say, they certainly went the extra mile by bringing in Mark Okita and asking him to essentially just redo a lot of his decayed lines, which conveniently, he might have still been freshly off of recording for the Legend Driver at the time. About the only more perfect casting might have been Akira Kushida, considering all of the parallels to O's, but maybe it was just too expensive. Regardless, Rania was pretty awesome with both a great design and a fairly unique moveset. The fact that each of her forms seemed to have their own unique finishers was another very nice rider-esque touch. I do kind of wish that they included a little more hand-to-hand, which should always be the focus of even some of the more gimmicky Kamen Rider series, but whatever, she still had a good fight with Logi that got across her battle-hardened persona, which is then nicely contrasted with her normal personality and really highlighted how dedicated she was to protecting her village, even though deep down she was a sweetheart, which is also a very rider-esque thing, including the current one. But yeah, overall, this episode was just a really good introduction to her and this very interesting new setting in the desert. The heroes better make sure to count up all of their coins 1, 2, and 3 before Axel comes in to shake things up. God, I'm a nerd. Thanks for watching, and if you want to hear a few more talking toys, maybe check out some of our other videos on this channel. I mean, granted, most Precure toys don't talk, but these belts can never seem to shut up. Look forward to Comrade Gav tomorrow, and until then though, farewell for now, my friends, and oh, my parents are coming over for a visit. If you'll just excuse me for a quick second.